Welcome, teachers, to this very special workshop organized by Trinity Sri Lanka. It's been a very tough year and a half for all of you piano teachers. You have faced so many challenges, having to switch to an online teaching method, having to learn how to teach online, having to, I'm going to mute everyone so that we don't have any disturbances. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. Having to learn how to teach online, having to keep children motivated throughout this process and interested in music, while also giving them goals and milestones to work towards. So while talking to some teachers who have navigated this process effectively, we wanted to provide more support and encouragement to other teachers in Sri Lanka. Therefore, I spoke to some experienced teachers about running workshops and teacher forums, where teachers who have been successful can share their expertise with everyone else. So I would like to introduce you to Ruvini Hapugalle Gunasekera. For those of you who don't already know her, I think most of you do. She has a LRSM in teaching and LTCL in piano performance. She has 29 years of teaching experience behind her, and she has been very successful in transitioning to this online teaching platform in the past year and a half. In 1999, she was a recipient of the ABRSM Travel Grant Award to follow an intensive 3-month teaching course based on the Royal Academy, based at the Royal Academy in the UK. And in 2017, she won the Zonta Award for Performing and Creative Arts. So Ruvini is a great supporter and a friend of Trinity in Sri Lanka, and she uses the examination process effectively in her teaching methods. We are ever so grateful to her for agreeing to do this workshop to help Trinity in our mission to support all music teachers in Sri Lanka. I have to mention here that Ruvini is doing this on a purely voluntary basis as a service to help other teachers, and we are so thankful for her generosity. She has spent a lot of time and effort into putting this workshop together, and I know that you will all benefit immensely from joining this forum. Ruvini will take you through her experiences of teaching online, and she has recorded herself teaching an actual lesson, which you will get to see today. She will also talk about preparing students for online exams and the role of the teacher and the parent in this process, which can be difficult to manage. She will also go over some exam pieces from each grade 1 to 5, and give you examples of technical details and exam criteria that is important to note if you want to score those high distinctions. The workshop is about 2 hours long, but it is packed with teaching videos and expert tips, so please try to stay with us. At the end, we will have a Q&A session that I will moderate, and I will be asking you for your feedback as well, as we want to do more workshops in the future, and this is very helpful to us. So I hope that you I will ask that you keep your mics off and your videos off and mics muted, because this will help all of us see and hear Ruvini clearly. So over to you, Ruvini.
Thank you so much, Renu, for the lovely introduction and for giving me this wonderful opportunity to present this workshop. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in with this workshop. First of all, I think all of us need a big cheer for surviving online teaching for almost 1.5 years. So, shall we unmute our mics and give ourselves a much-deserved cheer? Yeah, so well done to everyone for surviving online teaching so far. Thank you. So I just want to mention at the start itself that all that I'm going to share with you are really based on my personal experiences. I've not done any research, so please bear this in mind, because sometimes we might think differently. So let me start by sharing some of my teaching experiences during the pandemic. So I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. Since the pandemic struck so suddenly, I actually did not have much time to consider too many options. At that point, my main objective really was to ensure the continuity in the lessons. So I decided to conduct my lessons firstly through WhatsApp recordings. Looking back, I really don't know how I went through this very tedious, but it was a very effective way of conducting lessons, as I asked my students to send recordings twice a week. Each student was allocated 2 days, and the work was divided into 2 parts. So each day I would get quite a few recordings, and my feedback I would give through audio recordings, through videos, and also I would make markings on their music and WhatsApp them to them. I incorporated videos because I wanted the students to hear me play and show them how to correct a mistake as they would see me do so at a physical lesson. Since the students did not have school, they were able to adapt to this new way of doing a piano lesson quickly. Actually, I had quite a few parents thanking me for keeping their kids engaged, as suddenly so many things were taken away from their life. School, extracurricular activities, and very importantly, I believe social interactions. So as much as we teachers really found it hard to adapt to this, you can imagine how hard it would have been for our kids. I soon realized that I needed to change my attitude towards dealing with the pandemic. So rather than complain and feel sorry for myself, I thought of making this an opportunity to refresh my teaching strategies. I was quite happy not to have exams as the main focus during my teaching. So after going through the recording process for a week or two, I discovered that I should shift my focus to developing students' performing skills. I was quite excited by this prospect, and my head was just brimming with so many ideas. So as a first step, I identified that in order to develop their performing skills, I needed to sharpen their listening skills. So I'm sure all of you have had that experiences where you experience so much frustration when a student would attend physical lessons and play with the same old mistakes. I think here the main issue is that the students are not listening to their teachers and trying to understand a specific mistake, and then practicing effectively to make a specific correction. I soon discovered that WhatsApp recordings was such an effective way to get the students to focus deeply on specific mistakes. So I actually asked them to record specific mistakes. So sometimes I would give them I would ask them to send me around 6 to 8 recordings where they have corrected specific mistakes. And they really knew that they were caught for bad practicing habits. And my students, actually, they know that I'm quite demanding and that I work towards good standards. And now they were almost forced to change their careless practicing habits to good habits, where they see progress every week. So whilst I think during normal times I had a few good students who really stood out easily, I now had a majority of my students improving their skills to standards I think even they themselves did not realize they could achieve through hard work. So this was actually depicted in some of the fantastic results I got for these exams, because about 85 to 90% of my students scored well over 90. And I think that is because they changed their practicing habits. Virtual concerts. So as I mentioned before, my head was just bringing so many ideas on how to develop my students' performing skills. So from April 2020, I introduced virtual concerts. So at first, I used to have weekly virtual concerts on a Saturday. So I would have like around 6 to 8 students maybe performing weekly. And actually I encouraged them not only to perform on the piano, but they could perform on any instruments, they could sing, and even collaborate with their friends. I mean, one of my students actually collaborated with his friend virtually. So though I teach only the piano, I'm really a strong believer of holistic music education. And also this variety of items really added more variety to my virtual concerts. So in these virtual concerts, I not only had my students performing, I also used to share video clips of exceptionally gifted instrumentalists at these concerts. So I actually presented them as my international guest stars. And I also incorporated talk shows where these gifted musicians were interviewed, because I found that these interviews were so inspiring for young children to watch. The confidence they have when they speak about music, their passion for music, and their musical creativity. It was just fantastic. And I also used to present performances on exotic instruments, unusual instruments. All this was done just to sharpen their listening skills. So to excite my students and the parents about these concerts, so I have a really good assistant in my daughter Anagi. So she's the one who does all my trailers, all my presentations. She's the one who handles all the tech side of my teaching. So together we made concert trailers. And I think, these are possibilities that even you can do, because even if you don't have a family member who can help you, maybe you can ask one of the senior students to help you present a small virtual concert. It doesn't have to be grand. It's just something simple, but it's just a wonderful way of developing students' performance skills. So let me share with you some of my trailers. So as you can see from these comments, the students and the parents really enjoy these concerts. These concerts were a great way for me to develop their performance skills. They also learn to work towards a performance goal, as gradually I raised the bar and showcased performances only if they were up to a good standard. So during the course of the week, I would supervise their pieces, and if they were not up to the mark, I would encourage them to present them at a future concert. At the same time, these concerts really gave me the opportunity also to focus not only on their playing skills, but I started working on presentation. Quite a few of my students were very self-conscious in front of a camera, but gradually they began to relax the more they took part in these virtual concerts. So I was very particular about dress code and would not permit shorts, slippers. And it's just amazing to watch the transformation in kids when given opportunities to showcase their skills. I actually had a student who was very stressed to take part in concerts, and she was feeling very awkward in front of a camera. But I told the parents to keep encouraging that child to keep taking part, because actually she would deliver good performance at the concerts, but it's just that she was looking rather stressed. So she took part in a couple of concerts, and I'm really happy to say that at my last summer concert, she was actually the chirpiest performer there. She was smiling and enjoying, and it was so nice for me to see that transformation in her. I also had a couple of students who took part very regularly at these concerts. So, and they would learn the pieces super fast. And so I not only had students improving their performing skills, but also improve their reading. I try to encourage my students to make music with others. So since during lockdown it was a bit hard for them to collaborate with others, so I used to encourage siblings to play together and accompany the other. I introduce the art of accompanying to very young kids in a small way. I was really surprised by their efforts, and I would like to say this little boy, actually the first week he wanted to really accompany his sister on the violin. She was playing a grade 2 Trinity exam piece, and the first week I gave him only 3 weeks to learn the accompaniment, and the first week he had not practiced much, and then I thought maybe I'm just stressing him too much, and the challenge is a bit too much for him. So I told the mom, okay, let it go. Maybe they can collaborate, where he plays a piece that he already knows, and his sister could play the tune along with him. Then I think 2 days later, I got a text from the mother saying, Danuk really wants to do this accompaniment. And I said, okay, so let me hear him next week. And believe it or not, within 1 week, this little boy who's 8 years, not only learned the accompaniment, but he accompanied his sister playing the entire accompaniment by memory. It was really, it was very satisfying to see this, his determination, really. So really, when we give opportunities like this, you really don't know what they will come up with, and it's really a very satisfying, like you feel really happy to see this kind of development in our kids. Actually, my objective really with this concert was to make it a fun experience and not a very intense experience. So let me now share with you some clips from some of my past concerts, just for you to get an idea of how I did these concerts. Musical appreciation. So to keep my students engaged during online lessons, apart from the virtual concerts, I also introduced musical appreciation. I started with weekly sessions and then moved to twice a month. Again, when I look back, I'm really amazed that we did so much musically during those initial months of the pandemic. But actually, during that time, the kids had more time as there was no school. So during these musical appreciation sessions, we explored music like we explored Pete and the Wolf, Carnival of the Animals, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, the William Tell Overture, Spring and Summer from Vivaldi's Four Seasons, the Blue Danube, the Persian Market, and so forth. So how did I do these musical appreciation sessions? So I actually did an audio of me explaining the music and then giving them some guidelines on how to listen to the music. And then I made some activity worksheets for them to do. So for younger kids, I incorporated a lot of drawing, and I got the students also to make up stories. So for example, I asked them to make up their own ghost story to the music of The Sorcerer's Apprentice. And when making up stories, I told them that they had to connect to the tunes, to the instruments, and make a reference to this when writing the story. Through this activity, I discovered musical creativity amongst kids. They came up with such fantastic stories, and I identified that some of my students are really good at analyzing music. Actually, they might not necessarily play well at their class, at their lessons because they are a little too lazy to practice, but they analyze the music so well. So through this exercise, I really realized that they are very musical and have a really good ear for music. So I would really compliment them on their stories, and then that actually encourage them to also, uh, give them to make a great effort with their playing as well. How to engage effectively with students during online lessons. Let me now share with you some of my personal ideas on how to keep the students focused and engaged during online lessons. Connections. Have a stable and reliable connection. I know how frustrating it is to teach online because even though we have very good teaching plans, we are so dependent on good connections to conduct these lessons effectively and efficiently. Efficiently because we also got to do their piano lesson and also supervise their theory. So as a first step, I believe that we as teachers, we need to ensure that we have a good connection and then to make sure that the students have a reliable connection. I am not very tech savvy, but I know with dialogue routers, the router needs to be next to the piano. So in our family, actually, we all have our individual routers. But for example, if I was to use my daughter's router, which is upstairs, and conduct the lesson, the sound won't be great. So really, I think it's up to us to get our act together and just make sure that we have a secure connection and then really make sure that our students also have a good connection so that the lesson is very smooth. Full visibility of the keyboard. Yes, this is very important to check on fingering, hand position. Test the sound. Ask your students at the start of the lessons if they can hear you. There can be genuine issues, but sometimes you need to be really observant because when you're explaining something, they might not be really listening to you. So they might be distracted with something else and they are thinking about something else in their mind. And then when you ask them a question, they say, "Miss, I didn't hear you." But then I'm a little suspicious because then why didn't they tell me that they couldn't hear me when I'm explaining things to them? So just be a little observant there because our kids can be a little playful and a little naughty. Recap the previous lesson. Ask the students to recap what was done the previous week. Ask them for the corrections. It is actually more effective if you can ask them to demonstrate each correction before asking them to play from the start. Obviously, if a student has not practiced with corrections in their mind, they will blunder. So at this point, I might ask the student to read what the corrections were in their notebooks. And very often I also note down the corrections on WhatsApp. So I write it and I also take pictures of the music and make the corrections. So as you can see from these pictures, I have done my markings. I know that sad emoji, that emoji looks a little bad. But, I think if I recall right, this student got the timing right the following week. It's really amazing how fast a student can step up to the extent of learning an entire piece within a week if you communicate your disappointment in a different way. So they knew that I was not really upset, but they got the message there. So WhatsApp recordings corrections are a very effective way to keep tabs on what you as a teacher taught them, and also for the students to know what corrections they need to make for their lesson. Start the lesson with their best piece. Sometimes I ask the students to start with their best piece. It gets off the lesson to a more positive start. We can start the lesson on a positive note. Play as much as possible to your students. This is something I do a lot during the lesson. So if a student is struggling to play a piece, play the piece to them regularly so that they know what they need to aim. And if preparing for an exam, they will know how far they need to go. Of course, it's a great way to motivate kids to learn fast, especially if you play a piece really well, because they will catch on to the exciting rhythms and be moved by the emotion if you play the piece really well to their students. Ask the students questions about the piece. This is a great way to engage with the students. You can ask them to describe the dynamics, ask them to point out the repeats of melodies, ask them to describe the note pattern. For example, is the melody moving in steps or skips? Are the notes going up or down? Are there scale passages? Can you spot any broken chords, arpeggios? I think it's great if we can integrate theory into the piano lesson. Because this way they will also find the theory more interesting. You can also ask them to show the climax, the softest part, spot the different kinds of staccato and so on. I'm sure you get the idea, because I believe for a successful performance, the mind needs to be engaged. So asking questions is a great way to engage not only with the performance physically, but also mentally. Ask the students to copy you. Oh, this is really not the case of forcing your style of playing on them, but really to get them focused during the online class by listening sharply to music. So, for example, if the student is in the final phase before sitting an exam, you can ask the student to listen to how you as a teacher bring out the character of a piece, how you convey the dynamics, how you shape the melodies, and other details like, paying attention to accents, tenuto, staccato, slurs, and so on. Very often, students focus a lot on the right hand. But if you look at the Trinity exam pieces, there are lots of pieces with left hand melodies. And it's very good if you can play the left hand part for them and ask them to copy you. And also talk to them about the details as you play along to them. Always talk to them about what you're doing when you're demonstrating. Take turns. This is another wonderful way to keep the students focused during lessons. You can take turns in playing a phrase. If there's a dialogue in the piece, You can play the question and ask the students to play the answer. And it's really a great method to wake them up if they're feeling a little sleepy during the lesson. Change the order of pieces to avoid monotony. Don't always start from the first piece and move on. Always change the order of the pieces. You can, for example, ask the student to play maybe the slow piece first, and then contrast it by playing the faster piece, the livelier piece, and then just to get the excitement, maybe you can start playing the lively part just a little bit so that they really get the feel and they learn to contrast the two pieces. Of course, before the exam, you need to get them to play in the correct order. Focus on dynamics. I don't know about you, but I really find this aspect the hardest to assess during online lessons, especially for me to assess the softs. So I ask my students to play the softest sound on their instrument, and I get them to repeat a couple of times. But then if I have any doubts, I play the softest sound on my piano, and then I ask them to try again, and very often you would see a bigger difference. So you actually need to understand a student's instrument, how they can vary the dynamics. And even crescendos and decrescendos, so that the student also focuses on a good crescendo. And as a teacher, I also can hear them do a crescendo. I ask them to look at the length of the crescendo. So if it is over 4 bars, I ask them to play the first bar P, then MP, second bar, MF, third bar, and forte. And for the decrescendo, the other way around. I also give them extra markings on the music so that they're always engaged with dynamics as they play. There are so many ways that you can really make these online lessons effective, but I just shared with you just a couple of them. And I would like to share with you an online lesson that I did with one of my students. So he's Arin Correra, and he'll be playing Allegro from the grade 5 Trinity syllabus. And since he knows the pieces reasonably well, at this lesson I thought I would talk about structure, period, cadences, and other musical details. So I hope you will benefit from this. Hi, Arin. Hi, Arin.
Hello.
Okay. So today I thought of starting the lesson with Allegro. Did you practice it?
Yeah.
You think that's got better this week?
Maybe.
Huh?
Maybe.
Yeah. So I hope you worked a lot on dynamics and also the phrasing that we discussed last week, right? So let me just see what we have done. Okay, let me see how you sound today. Okay, so a good effort. Okay, still I feel the pulse is not very steady. There is a, it changes a bit too much, right? So I hope you will continue practicing with the metronome. Did you practice with the metronome?
Yeah.
Little bit? A lot?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Okay. So I feel that if you practice with the metronome more, that the pulse will be steadier, Arin. Okay. So it's very important to maintain a very steady pulse in this piece. You know, the places that you tend to get a little fast is also like in the scale passages. So have a good rhythm there. So it's and when you play a scale, just make sure you articulate the notes very clearly. You must listen to every note. If you listen to every note, that will also help to nicely control the speed without thinking of it like a gush kind of thing, right? So can you just try maybe one scale, maybe in bar 48 after me? So listen to every note. That's the right one? Yeah, I think the top notes. So when you play the scale, really listen to the top note. Yeah, just play only the top 4 notes. Yeah, release your fingers. Quick release of fingers. Yeah, it's okay. When you play the scale passage, think of it in 2 parts. So the first part, then second part. Right? Yeah. So when I'm practicing these bars are in, even the scale passages to make it steadier, practice the top 4 notes because that is where the tempo fluctuates a little bit. So in all throughout the piece, you need to get your scale passages steadier. And the other, yeah, you also tend to rush when you have repeated notes. That's if I tell you like what kind of things triggers these tempo fluctuations, you'll be able to work on it and also focus a little bit more on that. Right? So when you have repeated notes, you tend to get a little fast. So for example, bar 15. Can you squat bar 15? Yeah, got it? Okay. So when you have the repeated notes, make sure not. Of course, I'm exaggerating, you were not that bad. Okay, so I'm just listen to the repeated notes. Right? Ta, pa, pa, pa. Keep it nice and steady. Can you try that, Arin? So, Arin, so we are looking at bar 15. So we start on E, E, D, D, D. Bar 15.
Oh, 15.
Okay, you heard it. Okay. Yeah. Ta, 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 ta. Okay, now let's continue. So listen very carefully. Now, ta, 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 ta. Listen to every quaver. Pa, 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 pa. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, no, just play only this part, Are. Only that part. Listen to a very steady beat. Yeah, okay. So like that. So when you have repeated notes, you need to really listen out to the repeated notes. So another part is Arin bar 35, 36, bar 37. Can you look for bar 37?
Yeah.
Right. So what is the repeated note that I'm looking at?
Yes.
Yeah. So you are looking at F sharp. So make sure it's steady. And articulate the staccatos also well. Yeah, every note very clearly. Yeah. Because sometimes when we just go with the speed, we go. But we must hear very clear articulation on the staccato. Tap, 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 Listen very carefully to the third and fourth quavers. You got tit, 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 pop, 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 tit, 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 tit. Yeah. Yeah, so like that, Arin, this week, I would like you to make a note of the repeated figures and also the scale passages, right? And that will help you to nicely hold the tempo steady. Right. So I think today I would like to talk to you a little bit about the classical period. Okay, talk to you a little bit more about the structure of the piece, right? And some of the classical period characteristics that we see in this piece. Okay, so who is the composer of this piece?
Dussek.
Okay, good. When was he born? Can you give me his years?
1731 to 1799.
Okay, good. So actually, though he was born in the Baroque period, so usually we consider the Baroque period from 1600 to 1750. So he was born in 1731, right? So a bit of an overlap, but I think this period, this piece has a lot of classical period characteristics. Not so much the Baroque, but the classical period characteristics, right? So when composers wrote music in the classical period, they actually went by a structure. Right now, this piece has a very simple structure. Can you tell me how many sections do you think this piece has? Two? Yeah, it has two sections. Yeah. So the first section is from bar
Up till bar 20.
Okay. So from bar 1 to 20 is the first section, and then the second section is from bar 21 to
55.
yeah, good. Okay, so when there are two sections in the music, we say that the piece was written in binary form. So when the music has two sections, it's called binary form. So what is it called?
A binary form.
Yeah, okay. So a section usually comes to a close with a cadence, Arin. So now I think for theory you have done chords, right? Tonic chord, tonic subdominant, dominant chords especially, right? So when you have the dominant chord 5 followed by the tonic chord 1, we say it makes a perfect cadence. So it's like we mark a full stop. And then bring that whole section to an end. So this, in which key is this piece written, Ari?
Sorry?
In which key is this piece written in?
In G major.
Good. So in G major, if you look for the, it starts in G major, but the first section comes to an end in which key? Do you think it ends in G major? Look very carefully. Look for any new accidentals that have been included.
There is C sharp.
Great. Okay. So which key has it gone to?
The D major.
Okay, good. So now we have to spot the perfect cadence in D major, not in G major, right? Because it's coming to an end, close in D major. So chord 5, D, E, F, G, A. So we have an A in bar 19, followed by the tonic. So that's your cadence. So see how the cadence brings that whole section to a very nice ending, like a, you feel that it's come to an end, right? Like a full stop. Yeah. Okay, so similarly, the second section also ends with the perfect cadence. Now, before you tell me where the cadence is and play me the cadence, look carefully to see which key it's ending in. Is there C sharp there?
Yes. Yeah, and there's a G sharp. So I think
The last two bars. Now look at the last two bars.
yeah, it's in D major.
Sorry?
D major.
Do you see a C sharp?
G major.
Yeah, I can see G major, right? Okay, so we have to look for the perfect cadence in G major. So what's the dominant of G? G, A, B, C, D. So can you play with the cadence? Bring out the D. Play the bass a little bit more. Yeah, exactly, right? So the section ends with the perfect cadence, right? Now the other thing, now let's look for some other classical period characteristics, okay? Composers love to use scale passages. You know this sort of famous tune by Mozart? So there are a lot of scale passages, right? So in this piece as well, you can see a lot of scale passages. Okay, you've been playing this for some time, right? So see, let me play a scale passage for you. So that's how composers actually wrote melodies. They use a lot of scales. But don't play it like as if it's like from a technical point of view. Of course, you have to have fluency and play with good technique, but also listen to a melody when you play the scale passage. Now then, listen to the melody. So make it tuneful. The scale, when you play, make it tuneful. Right? Yeah, you need to listen to the scale array. Yeah. So focus on the keys. Don't look at the screen too much. Just focus on listening to the sound. Okay? Listen to the sound. Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, so you need to make the scale sound very melodic. So that's another thing that I would like you to work on, right? So after we finish this lesson, I would like you to write all these things down and send me a picture of what you wrote, okay? All the corrections, so that if I missed out on anything, I can write it and send it to you, right? So really make your scales very tuneful, because that is a melody, right? In the classical period. Okay, so another feature is, of course, composers love to use two-note slurs, right? So look through the music. So many two-note slurs. Okay, very hard to play when we play something very fast, but it's very important to follow the two-note slurs. Okay, because it just makes the music very graceful, right? So when you have a two-note slur array, so for example, like bar 11, when we play two-note slurs, lean on the first note and then second note must be soft. So can you do that two-note slur? I mean, yeah, the second note, don't take it like a staccato, like a hiccup kind of thing. La, la. Just the right amount of length you need to have. Yeah, so when you play classical period pieces, you need to listen to the end sounds. Can you see how much you need to focus? You have to really focus and listen to every single note. You can actually count the number of notes in this piece and tell me how many notes there are in this piece, right? You have to listen very, very hard, right? So that was, we had two crotchets. So we have two note slurs on quavers. Let's look at bar 7. So we have now these are quavers which are shorter, but still don't make the second note sound like a semi-quaver. So we have this lovely two-note slur and a very rhythmic figure. So make the semi slide. Then lean and slide. So lift on the semiquaver. Up, down. So you go. Not. I'm exaggerating, okay? So think of it going to the next note. Try. Try doing that, Tori. So can you play bar 7 for me? Yeah. Play after the G sharp. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so you really need to listen to all the two note slurs, right? And because that will really make this piece sound very graceful. Because if I didn't do the slurs, it will just sound very dull. But if I observe all the slurs, it just lifts the music to a more graceful style, right? Okay, so that's another feature you need to really focus on, right? Yeah. So today I thought, since we discussed a little bit about the structure of music, right? Now we discussed that the first section is from bar 1 to 21. But I think when we look at these bars, Aryan, I think there's an A and a B tune. Do you think there's an A and a B tune? In the first section, from bars 1 to 20, do you think there's an A and a B tune?
Yes.
Okay, where do you think the B tune is?
Bar 9. I mean bar 10.
Very good. Okay. So bar 10, we can spot like a B tune because there's a dynamic change as well, right? This is forte and this is MP. And can you see it has a so I think we should try to make it very lyrical. Give it a lyrical start. And then of course, we have there's a lot of momentum that's conveyed, like when we look at from bar 15, right? Very exciting end, right? But we can start, I think, very expressively, right? So then when we look at the second section, I think again we can think of it as having two tunes, so A and B tune. So obviously we know where the A tune is. It's at the start of the second section. Where do you think the B tune is?
In bar 46.
In bar 46. Very good. Yeah, because it starts in the same way, right, as the first section. First section, the B tune was.
Yeah.
So here it's. Right, so good. Okay, so now that we understood the structure of the piece, shall we take turns? Let's play a little bit of a game, right? So I play the A tune, you play the B tune. Make it sound different to my A tune. Okay, then I will play the A tune again in the second section. Of course, in the second section, the music starts in D major, and it's a softer start, right? Because at the start is forte, and then we have a piano start, and then you take over the B tune and see, and then you will understand the structure of the piece. I feel better if we do this little game. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So now just look for make a note of where your B tunes are, so that you can maintain some good continuity. Okay, ready? Okay. So this is just to understand the structure, right? So did this help you to understand the structure of the piece when we play this little game?
Yeah.
Do you think it helped you to understand the structure a little bit more now?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, right. So we discussed a lot of points, Ari. So you need to keep all that in mind when you practice. Okay? All right. So we'll stop for today. Okay? All right. See you next week. Bye. Preparation towards digital exams. So let's move on to the next topic. Yeah. So when these exams were announced for the first time, I think it was in June 2020, I actually thought that this option might be easier as they could record from home. But I was not entirely right because I soon discovered that if you want to submit a good recording, this could be a harder process as you are trying to perfect so many aspects of a performance. Lots of my students found the recording process initially very stressful. As for the first time, they could recall every single mistake they made. And also by listening to their recordings, they could really hear how lapses can actually distort an entire performance. So some students actually give their best performance in a live setting. Seeing an examiner's smiling face, for example, puts them at ease. The calm demeanor that most examiners have helps the students to relax. Whereas when recording for a digital exam, the student will be aware of just some anxious parents hovering around them, and they could actually make them feel more nervous. So I feel that it is best if a student can use a tripod, for instance, for recording. But sometimes you just need to ask them what they would prefer, because sometimes they might prefer if the parents are around them. So all my students actually do several recordings, not one recording, but several recordings. However, it's best that you educate your parents and your students to take breaks between recordings. So I encourage my students to attempt the final recording over the weekend, as it's generally quieter. And also make sure you share all the videos on the Trinity website and all the information that they have regarding these exams. And share this ahead of time so that everybody is familiar with the entire process, because this is a new thing for all of us. And also because if you don't tell them ahead of time, the parents will suddenly tune in and then get a little agitated and, try to clarify things and unnerve everybody. Not only the students, but the teacher too. So I start the recording process around 3 weeks before the deadline. So during this time, all my lessons are conducted through recordings and not online. During the first week, I get the students to record each exercise and each piece as separate recordings. I might ask them to send 2 such recordings during the first week. And if I find that there's one piece that is really bad, I might ask them to redo that piece with my corrections and send it the next day. So during the final lab, I outline a 2-week plan for my students. And this plan I share it not only with my students, but with the parents as well. So it's on their WhatsApp. So during this time, they submit around 4 trial recordings. So before attempting the continuous recording, I get them to record the technical work as one recording and then the 3 pieces as a continuous in another recording. So during the final week, the 3rd week, we do at least one continuous recording, and then where I give my feedback, and then the students attempt the exam recording over the weekend. I actually don't specify the number of times they need to record, and I clearly tell my students that this recording process is actually a journey, because if they have not practiced consistently, this process is going to be very stressful for them. So lots of our students work last minute, so they actually suffer if they have not practiced consistently, I feel. So I feel that actually the students need less time to practice just before a recording, because if they have to put more hours, that means they have not practiced consistently. So when my students send their first best exam videos, I give them general feedback, not specific corrections that I do over the first 2 weeks, because at that point I really don't want to push my students, and I just leave it to them. And I also just let them decide after hearing my general feedback, which I share through an audio. I just let them decide whether they want to try again. Maybe because I tried to tell my students to actually attempt their first exam recording on Saturday, so that they have that Sunday as well to do it again if they feel that they want to try again. So these are just some of the methods that I adopt during the last few weeks before the exam. Advantages of digital exams. For me, the digital exams have worked really well. I had some students sitting these exams from the first session itself, and actually got really lucky because my students were used to the recordings, because if you recall, I started my lessons through WhatsApp recordings. So this really helped my students to transition very smoothly to the digital exams. Yes, so this is a great way to develop performance skills. I think I talked to you so much about this, and because this is something that I'm very passionate about, and so along with the regular virtual concerts, with these digital exams, I was able to approach the exam with a new perspective in mind. So I think I talked to you about a lot about this. It's a great way to improve presentation skills. So this includes being attired smartly, not to rush from one exercise to another, not to rush from one piece to another. And I also ask the students to think about the opening and hear it in their mind before they play. It's also important for them to think about the tempo ahead of time, because due to their nervousness, they tend to play pieces really fast. So if a student is looking agitated, I think we need to give them some advice on how to control their emotions, because for an examiner, it's always nice to see a student looking relaxed with nice relaxed facial expressions. And then there are enthusiasm. Students' enthusiasm and enjoyment has an infectious impact on the examiner, and students are just bound to get a really good mark. So advise your students to be musically engaged with the performance, as marks are also given for musicality and convincing communication. This is a valuable opportunity for students to self-assess their progress. Yeah, so I think this is one of the greatest benefits I see in these exams, because the children from a very young age learn to self-assess their progress. Because this digital exams almost forces them to listen to the play, not at the surface level, but deeply into the score, because the examiners are checking on every single musical detail, all the articulation, the phrasing, dynamics, and everything. So the students actually discover how a good use of dynamics, musical phrasing, good articulation, good character, good rhythmic drive can take a performance to a higher level. So the more musical details they incorporate, I think they really also start enjoying to play their pieces. And actually, the students themselves get very excited by the newfound skill. And the more they get into it, I actually also have witnessed their self-confidence. Their self-confidence grows, and also their enthusiasm. Because actually the musical students feel really bad to hear a bad recording. So actually some of the parents have told me that these students record so many times before they send me any kind of recording. So I think it's a great thing, because you will not see this in a normal, if you were to send them for a normal lesson, a normal exam, like a physical exam. Students learn to take responsibility for their musical development. So not only for their progress, but towards musical development. I've witnessed students be more focused and motivated after they receive great results. So through the self-assessment process, especially older kids aged 10 and above, they really realize that to achieve success, they really need to put in a lot of work. And they begin to take on more responsibility by practicing for their lessons. So it's really amazing to see the transformation. So I would really say it's really worth pushing the kids a bit during the preparation stage, as once they get a good result, they just forget about all the stress they went through. Students learn to work towards tighter deadlines. So unlike physical exams, so when we enter students for the physical exams, they actually have a couple of months before they sit the exam. But with the digital exams, they are given 3 weeks. So it's a tighter deadline for them. And through these tighter deadlines, I found that the students learn how to overcome lapses in a more organized and efficient way. So you would see them get into a consistent practice routine, which is really a great habit to cultivate. These are just some of the advantages that I've shared with you when preparing students for these Trinity digital exams. I approach it like, as if the students are presenting a mini recital. So to focus on the performance aspect rather than the mark. I actually don't mention marks to my students, but rather emphasize on hard work and commitment. So by shifting the focus to improving performing skills, I believe you will have a lifelong impact on a student's musical journey. And I believe that really this is the greatest gift we can give our students. Working as a team to create a successful exam recording, student, teacher, and parent. While parental support is important at all times, this is especially important to ensure the success of a digital exam recording. Due to the frequent lockdowns, the students might most probably have to do their exam from home. So as a first step, educate the parents on the exam process at the time of entry. You can, like I said before, you can share the Trinity videos and other information on the Trinity website regarding the digital exams. And I also, usually before they make the payment, I send them all a message outlining my expectations during the final exam preparation stage. And if they are ready and if they are agreeable to the plan, I ask them to make the payment. Keep the parents updated on their child's progress frequently. In this case, it's a bit easier for me because I note down all their corrections on WhatsApp. So very often it's the parents' WhatsApp that they're using. So they know where the kids' progress, how they're progressing. And also my feedback to trial recordings are also sent on WhatsApp. And if you have any personal concerns, you really need to get in touch with the parents immediately. Don't delay too much because everybody will get agitated at the end. So always make sure all 3 parties, the teacher, the student, and the parent are on the same page. Give clear instructions to the parents on the do's and don'ts on the day of the recording for the exam. As mentioned before, try to ask the parents to use a tripod because older kids especially will feel a little pressured and stressed if a parent is holding the camera too close to them. So advise the parents not to share the anxiety with the kids. Most importantly, advise the parents to give their child or children a break if they appear to be too stressed. So I believe that communication is key. Do maintain an open dialogue with your parents at all times. It will contribute towards a successful exam recording. Selecting exam pieces. So the Trinity exam books actually comprises of a wide range of pieces from different periods and styles. And some of these pieces actually have very interesting titles. Amlet, NDCVR, AGNT, which incidentally is the code name for a spy. Merlin's Incantation, where the composer Sarah Walker conjures up spooky spells and magical enchantments through the use of accidentals and meandering melodies. Please count. As the title suggests, the pieces have the piece has syncopated rhythms and offbeats. So get the younger children actually to read these titles and just watch the expressions. It's priceless. Yeah, so when selecting exam repertoire, these are some of the steps I follow. Recommend a few pieces which are suitable for your students. So sometimes a very young kid, they might have a very small hand. They might have a small hand. So you need to make sure they can play all the chords and all the notes very comfortably. And I also sometimes I play a couple of pieces and ask them to choose the piece. Ask your students to listen to some pieces on YouTube. So I do this with the older kids especially and ask them what they would like to play. I always try to include at least one Baroque or classical period work. I think it's really important to expose kids to more serious styles of music too, as they really help to build a secure technique and make the student focus on lots of musical details like phrasing and articulation. Choose pieces as if it's for a mini recital. Yeah, so it's always nice for the students to think they're actually presenting their first mini recital. So try to choose pieces with contrasting styles. Challenge your keener students with the more advanced pieces from the list. Yes, because don't be guided by just the marks when selecting pieces. Just think about the long-term goal that you have for your students, which is overall musical development. End with a lively piece. So I think it's also nice for them to end with maybe a jazz piece or something lively. It gives a nice ending to the program. The 20 ebooks have additional pieces. Yes, the 20 ebooks actually have many more additional pieces and some very interesting pieces like themes from movies and stuff like that. So, and because it has so many pieces, you can also use it maybe as a book of outside pieces. So they can continue learning those pieces. So these are just some points that I shared with you to keep in mind when selecting exam pieces. So now we come to the end of our presentation. So let me round off this presentation with some performances of some exam pieces. So since I have already covered grade 5 through the online lesson that I shared with you, which was Allegro, I'm going to play to you one piece each from initial to grade 4, and I will be playing the piece first and discussing some of the musical and technical details in a piece. And I hope you will find this useful. Initial. So I chose the old German dance because I feel this would be a popular choice because it's in the C position. So it's within the 5-finger position. And also when a kid takes up the initial exam, some of the kids could be pretty young. So they could be 5 years or 6 years. And so I think a C major position piece would give the kids some confidence to read the notes on their own and also to play this piece well. So let me first play this piece for you and then I'll just talk to you about a few details. It's just that the first line is MF and then the second line is P. So it's basically an echo effect. So if you just talk to them about the echo effect, they would nicely contrast the two dynamics. Actually, the challenge in this piece is actually obviously the third and fourth lines because of the moving quavers. So when we move from steady crotchet beats and then we suddenly have those moving quavers, a little kid especially who find it very difficult to maintain a very steady pulse. So to understand how these quavers move, and actually it's draw the attention to the chat, because then they would enjoy playing the quavers and also try to keep a steady beat. So the chat is, we start with the left hand, then with right hand response. So ask them to make sure that the right hand response is played at the same beat and the same speed as the left hand. I actually like to use the ti-ti-ti-ti-ta-ta method of counting for initial. So I say ti-ti-ti-ti-ta-ta, 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 ti-ti-ti-ti-ta, so that they really listen to every quaver. So just get them to practice the chat. And then in the last line we have forte. Then this time is piano. Then forte. Another thing is, because we need to convey the chat, we need to play those G's, the minim G's, very softly. It's quite hard for small kids to think about all these things, but actually the G's need to be soft so that we can hear the left hand melody well. Now here we need to play the left hand G soft so that we hear the right hand. Help them with the conversation, or sometimes they can play the left hand, and if you are seated on this side, you can play the right hand as a response. So they would also like to hear the response coming at a higher register. It gives it a different color. Yeah, so those are the little details I thought I would just talk to you about. So it's a nice piece for an initial grade, especially for a younger kid to play. Grade 1. So I chose the Pirate Stomp, and if you are having any boys who are taking up the grade 1 exam, I'm sure they would enjoy playing this piece because they really are into these pirate stories and things like that. And certainly my boys actually had lots of fun playing this piece. So let me just play this piece for you, and then I'll talk to you about a few details. Stomping around on their ship, and this is indicated with a strong rhythm in the left hand. So this piece has 4 beats, so just make sure your students play the third and fourth crotchets, which are detached, very lightly, so that we hear a good strong rhythm. Down, up and down, so down, up, down, so up, down. I found some of my students actually hesitating, so sometimes they would do. So tell them is up, down, up, down. So we need to feel a very rhythmic left hand there. Yeah, and also just show them the intervals, because by this time they will be doing grade 1 or 2 theory. So these are intervals of fifths. which the composer is using, and the left hand certainly has lots of fifths. So get them to just sound the fifths first. So D minor, then we have a C major chord, then we have B flat. Just get them to listen to the fifths. Then in the second section, just tell them how the accompaniment changes from a chordal accompaniment to a more melodic one. And make sure they hold the semi-breaths. So to hold the semi-breath. So this piece has 3 sections, and I think it's always good to talk to them about sections even from grade 1 onwards, because if you talk to them about sections, they also would attempt to contrast the 3 sections. So there's more variety in their play. So the first section is definitely with lots and lots of energy, and the dynamic range is in the MF 40 range. So this is the first part, MF. So the answer. So think of the left hand as an answer. Answer. Now whilst the right hand is legato, the left hand is staccato. They might find it a bit hard to coordinate that. So just get them to practice slowly, because it should not be loud as well, it should be soft. So a little bit of slow practice there will be good. Sometimes they will do, but it's staccato. C major. Draw the attention to the rest. There's a rest which would help them to move the chords. Make use of the rest to shift to the next chord ahead of time, so that then the left hand continues nicely. Shift, shift. That's the end of the first section. Now the second section is quieter. Something about repeated notes is try not to play them heavily. I'm sorry, ask your students not to play the notes heavily. Answer. Now echo. And there's a ring and it says sneakily. Then it comes to a fun ending, very exciting, because there's an accelerando and your students would love play the last part. It's like, they just rush forward and they just say, hey, kind of thing at the end. So that's the feeling you need to convey. Yeah. So very chirpy piece. And it's a fun piece to teach your kids, and also a fun piece to listen to. Grade 2, the Penguin Parrot. So I thought of choosing the Penguin Parrot because the swing rhythm is introduced here. So I thought I can talk to you about the swing rhythm. So it's also a really fun piece for kids to play because it's got a very chirpy melody, and certainly the students who play the Penguin Parrot, they really love playing this piece. It has got such a happy tune. So let's see how it goes. Playing the last one. Yeah. So ask them to just look at Google a image of a penguin so that they know, that it's kind of they're fat, and the way they move, So you need to have a good solid rhythm in this piece. You need to convey a very solid rhythm, and it's the swing rhythm that's introduced here. So first, for them to understand the swing, I would do like a little clapping exercise maybe. So first get them to clap the normal quavers. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then you ask them to swing it. So we play it as a crotchet quaver. So just ask them to listen to a long sound and a short sound. That's, I think, for younger kids especially, it's easier for me to teach them the swing rhythm by asking them to listen to a long and a short sound. So it's long, long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short. So we just get them to clap it. And then actually get the students to actually circle the pairs of quavers so that they know those are the notes that they need to swing. So once they do that, then they know it's long, short, 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 long. Then of course in bar 4 we have the swing rhythm followed by a triplet. So I think because the triplet is an irregular beat, I think you need to just help them a little bit with the beat. So maybe you can tap the beat, the crotchet beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Long, short, triplet, meaning 2 beats. Long, short, triplet, and meaning 2 beats. So just keep tapping the crotchet beats for them when they are playing. Otherwise, don't let them just hand it on their own at the start, because those are very complicated rhythms for grade 2. And at the same time they can practice the third line. So we go, the teacher does the tapping. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are the bars. You need to get them to practice. Separate it first for the rhythm. Others they get very confused with this. So then after that, ask them how is the melody structure, and tell them, do you notice anything about the third line? And then of course the ones who are very musical will immediately say yes, it's one octave higher. So though it looks a little complicated when you tell them that the third line is a repetition of the first, it makes it easier for them because they don't have to read a new line of music. So you just repeat it one octave higher. So when you have lots and lots of notes for them to read, just show them the repeat, because then they also think, okay, I can enjoy this piece, I can learn this piece faster. So yes, so there's a nice rhythm in the left hand. 1, rest, rest. So they can even tap. Yeah, so that they really feel the rest there. And yes, and then there's the poker-it, and then they have marked that little comma at the end of the second line, which means you need to take a breath. Breathe and then we start. Yeah, so just get them to practice the left hand. So as the teacher, you could keep the 4 beats going. 1, 2, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Long. So once they're really steady with the left hand, then you ask them to play together. And notice a decrescendo. So you lean on that, then soft. Get a little softly, slowly. Get a little slowly. So you lean on that, then it's a soft release. So just get them to listen to those little decrescendos, because it adds a lot of character. And also definitely the last line, which has a long crescendo. So very often the kids, by the time they play the second note, they are already loud. So when it's 4 bars, just tell them, let's play the first bar P, M, P, M, F, and then we get to a nice forte at the end. So P, MP, MF, and R. So we get a nice effective crescendo there. So lovely piece, fun piece. So enjoy teaching this piece to your students. Grade 3. So I thought of playing the ballad for you because I feel some of your expressive students would love playing this piece because it's got some gorgeous melodies. So let me play this piece for you first and then I'll go through some details. Okay, so as you know, the ballad is a romantic song and the romantic feeling just comes through because the writer has such an emotional melody and so many dynamics are marked to convey that expressiveness in the melody. Yeah, so if I go to the right hand, I always like to talk about the left hand. So, you know, it sounds a little haunting because we start with a chord of a seventh, with an interval of a seventh, which sounds a little dissonant, but it resolves to a major chord. So get your students to listen to the seventh. Then this time it goes to a minor third. So seventh, then goes to a major third, seventh, major third. So listen to the resolution of those chords. And when you phrase, there's a two-note slur there, so play the second chord softer. Though it comes on the first beat, play it softer. So just draw your students' attention to the left hand because I think you need to play that left hand accompaniment very sensitively and looking at the details as well. So now we move on to the right hand melody. We have a short phrase. So we start and notice the tenuto. Now the second phrase, what happens? It goes to a higher note. Now goes to a higher note with a moving bass. So it goes with a moving bass. So we go. Second phrase, make a difference. Move to the B and move the left hand. Then we listen to the resolutions in the left hand. Then diminuendo. Now we go to A minor. And from here onwards, the left hand accompaniment needs to be very flowing and very smooth. So get your students to play the left hand accompaniment here very softly. Not note by note. Like in one breath. So not separated like this. Listen, get them to listen to the left hand accompaniment. And reach. Think of the fifth here, the tone of a fifth here. Now we go higher to a C. Then dim. Sorry. Now here I would ask the students to listen to the rise and the fall in the melody. So we have the rise and the fall. So we need to convey that. Restating the melody, but now it's one octave higher. Still higher. And we have the moving bass. And this is the resolution in the left hand. And then we have the break, very unusual ending, unusual harmonies. So let me just play from 18 because I was explaining as I played, I was hesitating a bit, but let me just play the melody through. And higher, and the resolution, and the deep crescendo. Listen to the continuity in the quavers. When the right hand takes over, it should be very smooth. 1, 2, 3, and lift. It's a beautiful song. It's a beautiful song because it's a ballad. So I'm sure you would really love teaching this lovely dreamy piece to your students. So from the grade 4 book, I decided to choose the waltz because I feel that it will be a popular choice and it's got such a lovely melody, and I'm sure you would also enjoy teaching this piece. So let me first play this piece for you, and then I will talk to you about some details which would really help to characterize this piece with a very graceful and elegant style. Melody, and it says dolce, sweetly and gracefully at the start, and then we have the middle section which is cantabile, which is singing, that has some lovely long sustained long notes, lots of dotted minims, dotted crotchets. Yes, I think to convey a beautiful right hand melody with so much detail in the phrasing, because it got two note slurs, there are staccatos, there are tenutos. To convey all those details, I feel first we need to work on our left hand. So the left hand has a lot of phrasing. So there is a mezzo staccato and a staccato. So we must, when we teach this piece, I feel we need to draw our students' attention to the mezzo staccato and staccato, and tell them that you need to have different lengths. So mezzo staccato longer and staccato shorter. So but only thing is, because the staccato comes on the third beat, very often they might take it up like an accent. But you need to play very light, soft staccato. Down, long, short. Down, long, short. Down, long, short. Down, long, short. Short. Yeah, so that's the left hand for you. And then in the right hand too, we have so many markings. We have the two note slur. So if you look at bar 3, we have a two note slur. So the second note is soft and diminuendo. and then we have a tenuto. So we need to get it, all the details. Actually, the third staccato, it's always better to think of it moving to the first beat of the next bar, so that there is no gap, or there is the melody continues nicely over the bar line. So we think of the third beat moving on to the first beat. So like this, up, down. So we go up, down, up, down, rather than a separate staccato and then going to E. We continue with the melody. Up, down, up, down. So we get a beautiful continuity in the melody line. So let's see how it sounds now. So I'm going to listen to my staccatos in the left hand and try to get all the phrasing in the right hand. So you lean on the daughter crotchet. Now make sure the third staccato is the same length in both hands. So you can't have a heavy left hand staccato and a light right hand staccato. It doesn't work. We need to listen to the blend in the sound. Up, down. See? 1, 2, up, down. Up, down. So that's the first phrase. And then we can take a breath. Breathe. Now in the second phrase we go towards a higher note. We go to A. So we need to really highlight that note. So I play from bar 12 and sing the A. And then we have the perfect cadence to bring the first section to a close. So we have, this is the ending. Then perfect cadence. Now we move on to the second section. So you can ask the students to show the differences between the first section and the second section. So the second section obviously has the longer notes, so we need to really sustain the sound and just tell them, just imagine a violin playing. So they will use the long bows for the minims and the dotted minims, so we need to really sing out the right hand, but at the same time the left hand goes with the very graceful accompaniment. Actually, in the second section, I would think of it more like a question and answer style. So this is the question. So we have a beautiful long cantabile melody in the right hand. Now I would take this as the answer. More like a question and answer style, I'm sure the student also will be more engaged with the music and try to play each melodic phrase in a different way. So let me play that for you again. Answer. And then we have this, and then we have the repeat of that. It says più espressivo, so it's more expressive. Crescendo. To express it more, we have the long crescendo, so we need to draw the students' attention to the long crescendo over 3 bars. And this time it goes to a higher note. I think the first page our highest note was A, but now we go towards a B, so which we need to highlight. Now we think of this as the answer. Most often the students will struggle to play that chord, the dotted minim chord. I tell my students first to think of the E minor triad and then you add the E. The D, sorry. And you have to add the D. So E minor tonic triad and add the D. So we have the short crescendo and deep crescendo. But when we play it higher, you can see that there's a change because there's a longer crescendo. So these are the little details that the student might miss, so you need to draw their attention to all these details. And the crescendo, now we have a longer crescendo. So we the piano. And then we have 3 descending chords, and then we pause, and then we go back to the very happy, chirpy, graceful melody. Up, down, breathe. Now go to G and F. And then we have the perfect cadence. Very playful ending. Okay, so hope you enjoyed this piece, and I'm sure you would have lots of fun teaching this lovely voice to your students. So I hope that was useful for you. So let me just wish all of you good luck in your journey to create a new generation of great pianists. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruvini. Thank you very much for that session. I mean, I found it so interesting, and I'm sure a lot of the teachers did too. And I'll first quickly go to questions before I end the session, because there may be questions. And just for this section, I wanted to ask teachers if they are familiar with the chat option. It would be better if you can use the chat. But certainly if someone prefers to unmute their mics and speak, that is also fine. So I'm going to look at the chat now and see if there are any questions. I will read it out to Ruvini, and if Ruvini can answer, she will. And of course, if there are questions that can't be answered, we can always get back to you. So teachers, please use the chat box to type any questions you have. But once again, if you want to unmute, then I will give you the option to unmute as well and ask the question over the microphone. Okay, someone wants to know about joining your classes, Ruvini. That's a bit issue.
Is this all students? Yeah, I'm actually quite full. But I think after I went through this whole presentation, I think I'm very, I really would like to maybe consider doing some teacher training courses, because after a long time, actually, I was also able to go through, like refresh my mind on what I've been doing and how I need to improve, and being on a virtual platform and everything. So it's definitely something that I really want to consider, and maybe just help teachers to teach better. I'm sure all of you are doing a great job, but this is my passion, I think. So I would like to share that. So let me consider doing think about some sessions, maybe some weekly sessions. So if anybody's interested in joining, so yeah, so that's.
I think that's a great idea, Ruvini, because there are a lot of messages here asking about master classes with you and how they can learn under you.
I wish I had the 48 hours in a day actually to do all this stuff, but yeah, I've been focusing so much on my students, but it's really something that I would like to share with all of you. So let me come up with a plan, and I will share that with Renu. And then if there's anything particular that you would like to learn, or not learn, but anyway, yeah, it's a share of ideas. I really think that it's really an opportunity for teachers to come together during this time, share ideas, because all of us have great ideas. So we just need to share that. And because in the end, everybody just benefits from this, and we can create a new generation of great pianist.
Definitely. So Surekha has a question. Surekha, are you going to type it out, or are you going to? Okay.
Can I just say, yes. Well done, Ruvini. That was awesome. And you've always been an influence. And for me, when I started teaching, I think you and Niluka, especially you guys, inspired me a lot and shaped. I mean, I didn't want to teach even. And it's wonderful to sort of revisit a lot of those things with your session today. How do you, I mean, I find that my eyes and my mind gets really tired when we go on teaching. And actually yesterday I just canceled everything because I felt so depressed, because I'm like looking at this screen and you know, they are not there physically, but I try to sort of have proper breaks, sort of do it in 2.5 hours or whatever things, and have breaks in between. But how do you manage that?
Well, actually, I do teach in the morning as well, at least 4 days of the week, and then I start teaching around 2:30 and I go up to 7:30. I have to say sometimes my eyes are like smarting at the end of the day. I feel very tired. But I learned to kind of take small breaks maybe. So I just take maybe a 5-minute break. But the problem there is I don't stick to the time. So if it's a 45-minute lesson, I tend to get a bit carried away and then I lose my break. But you know how I manage it. So when the student is playing, sometimes you know what their students are going to do, isn't it? From the first note they play, you know whether they're practiced or not, and you know what to expect. So when they're playing, I have a chair that rotates. So I actually take the music to my hand and I just move my face away from the screen and look at the garden and listen to it. So it's a break, you know, for me. I just take my eyes off the screen. And then, so I do that a couple of times. And then when I have to show them something, of course, I kind of focus on the screen and teach. So I do that. So because otherwise I really find it hard, Sureka, to teach for so long.
But I think I also have to say, because I know your daughter also, you know, has been practicing a lot. I'm sure your son as well. But I know they can't practice while you're teaching, but still you manage to balance all of that. And I'm sure all of us find it hard to balance whatever our personal lives with this. But well done for doing that and showing us that you can do all of that well. So I think it's really inspiring, and thank you for sharing. Okay.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and I think I'm thankfully my kids are old now, so I didn't have to really tune into their schoolwork or anything. So they're totally independent in that sense. So that really helped me to really focus on my teaching. And like you, Sureka, I don't perform, so I have a little bit more time. So otherwise, I know if I were to perform and had a young family, I wouldn't have been able to do half these things that I do actually. So congratulations to all of you, because we all have different commitments and everything. So we need to respect that.
Definitely. Ruvini, I'm trying to get through some other questions that have come through. Venetia, who is, I think, your student, is asking about elaborating on types of activities that you gave students when listening to music for musical appreciation.
Right. Yes, actually, I might be having, because I used to actually email or WhatsApp all the activity sheets. Actually, because I depend so much on my phone that sometimes I have to delete stuff because all these answers come, these audios, to and fro videos. So actually, I've deleted some, and when I was actually feeling sad that I have not actually saved even my students' their answers. I managed to find one after navigating through so many WhatsApp messages. But Venetia, I'll be in touch with you.
Yeah, possibly, Ruvini, if you'd like to share anything, we can always email it out to the teachers if there's anything that, useful resources that they could use for this sort of thing.
Online, there are so many options, because there are actually quite a few good worksheets which you can be guided by, and also then add your own as well. And also you must know how you need to understand your students, their capabilities. So you need to kind of, I think, focus on their capabilities and then adapt what the activity is. So sometimes I have the activity sheets for juniors and then separately for my seniors and intermediate and senior students. And it's actually only the keen ones actually did every single session, but I was really happy that all of them did make an effort. But it was nice.
Great. So Menaka has asked about the concerts. I have a question. She first thanks you very much. And she says, when you mentioned Saturday online concerts of your students, were they on YouTube or Zoom?
Yeah, Menaka. So actually, at first I used to share each performance separately on WhatsApp. And then I thought, okay, they really need to, experience a concert, so the continuous thing. So then actually, I have Anagi who does all this tech stuff for me. So I said, so we actually used to create a personal, like a YouTube link. So we would upload all those performances to a private YouTube link and then share that link with the students and the parents. And I kind of gave the permission for parents also to share it with their friends and family if they thought it would be nice to spread. I mean, grandparents especially would love to see how their grandkids are doing. So yeah, so the YouTube link was very useful. So that's how I do the concerts, and also you can go up to quite a bit of time, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you can create a YouTube channel, which is quite easy to do if you have a Gmail account or something. And then it's a case of recording and posting it. And then it's always there as also like something that you could visit, and it's like an album almost that you can keep.
Yeah, definitely, because I don't know if you recall, but sometimes I suddenly share the links of past concerts, especially like 2020 to 2021. I've been sharing some of the 2020 recordings because actually the parents also can see the progress and actually how the kids have also grown, and so it's really, yeah.
Advantages of having technology.
Yeah, definitely. And also, it's something they can even revisit when they're much older and see how they began their musical journey. So it's really a great way of saving all the performances.
Yeah. So we do have a teacher who's asked about theory. We didn't really cover theory on this, but she's just asking if there are tips on teaching theory online. Might be a different workshop.
Very quickly, I'll just tell you what I do with theory. So because so I basically spend about 40 to 45 minutes with each student online, and then sometimes theory, you need to incorporate theory. But since sometimes I just love teaching the piano, I have to tell you the truth that I prefer teaching the piano than doing theory, but I do the theory part as well up to grade 5. What I do is, like, if I feel that a new topic like rhythm and things like that, which really needs a lot of explanation. So if I feel that it would take a lot of time of the lesson, I actually record the theory session and or a video, and I use a whiteboard and explain the lesson, and then I share it with them just before the lesson, so that I use less time of the lesson to do both. So that's what I do. So I send theories like teaching videos before. Yeah. So sometimes it's easy, because you need to follow the workbook. So maybe you can create videos for each topic, and you just for the particular grade, you can also share it. So it's kind of efficient as well. So yeah.
Okay, thanks, Ruvini. So I think that was all the questions. A lot of thank yous, Ruvini, and I have to say thank you as well. But just before I do that, I have put some questions on the chat. So these are just some feedback questions. They're very general questions. If you can email it to info@trinitysrilanka.com, or you can WhatsApp it to my number, which is there. It's just to see how useful the workshop was, and if you are teaching piano online, what are the challenges you're facing? Did this session help you with some of those challenges? And if you want to have more workshops like this done by other teachers, and I hope some of you listening will step up, because I'm sure that
I think I can spot a few who can
who will be happy to do workshops and share their insightful experience as well. Then we will be very happy to put it together with like we have done with Ruvini, and present it to you, and sort of form like a teacher forum, teachers helping other teachers, and that's very important. So please do take the time to respond. I will also email out these questions to everyone. And I also need to quickly say a quick thank you to Sounds & Co. for lending us all the Trinity books. So I am going to, the books, they lent us all the books so that we could work on this workshop, and that really helped us. So I have to say thank you. And also, if you want to buy the Trinity books, they are offering a discount voucher. And I think we have emailed that out to you. So thank you, Sounds & Co. And now a very big thank you to Ruvini. I can't thank you enough Ruvini,
My
for
pleasure.
everything that you did. And also a thank you to Anagi and Yukti who helped Ruvini put this together. I mean, they are just an amazing team. And I have watched those online concerts and been part of the process. So I know how much effort that they do put into this. And I am very happy that that Ruvini has this support, and it's so nice to see a family working together in music. I think that's really amazing, and we are very appreciative of everything that you do, Ruvini. So having said all that, and thank you, Ruvini. Ruvini, do you want to add any last comments?
I just want to wish all of you the very best, and don't be disheartened. Don't feel, don't give up. Right. So as this is our calling as teachers to impart our knowledge and our passion for music with our students. So just go all out for it. Yeah.
Yes.
So all the very best to all of you.
Yes, all the very best. Enjoy your Sunday lunch. Thank you for joining us. It was a wonderful participation, actually, and I'm so glad that it went well. Thank you again, everyone, and good luck, and bye-bye.